Hello, how are you? First, I want to start this video by saying I want you to look at the state of this. Look at this. Now, I'm trying these new gel polishes, and let me tell you, I spent 45 minutes doing my nails, and this one just came off whole. I mean, the whole thing came off. I was doing something. What was I doing? I don't know what I can't remember what I was doing, but the whole polish came off. And this one chipped. And I did this 2 days ago, so I'm not happy. So I want you to ignore this. I'm very self-conscious about it, but I wanted to do this video anyway. So enough of that. Today I'm going to be covering how to do the Tunisian knit stitch. Now this is a great stitch if you want that knit look of like the stockinette knit fabric, but you don't want to actually knit and you want a denser fabric. So this fabric is going to be like stockinette, but it's going to be a lot denser, which means it's going to be warmer. It's going to be, great for blankets if you're making a blanket using this stitch. But a caveat to this is that it does tend to curl because stockinette tends to curl. So keep that in mind while you're working this stitch. We are going to be doing a little bit to try to alleviate that curl. So I'm going to be going up like a half a gauge size with my Tunisian hook here. So usually I'll use a 4.5 millimeter when I'm working stockinette stitch, but today I'm going to use a 5. So I have my 5 millimeter Tunisian crochet hook. If you don't have a set of these, I do have some coming to the store. So make sure to check below this video. There should be a bar that shows products. If you click any of those products, they go directly to my store. So keep your eye out to see these coming soon. And then I'm going to have my little worsted weight yarn here. All right, to start, we're going to chain any number of stitches. We don't really need a specific amount of stitches. We just need, whatever you want to work. So if you're working a scarf, you're going to want to chain enough for a scarf. If you're working a blanket, you're going to want to chain enough for a blanket. So I'm going to do just a few so we can just do a demonstration. So let's start with our chain. I'm going to take the yarn, wrap it around my finger, cross it, and then I'm going to grab here and pull, and now I've got a little loop there. So I'm going to take my hook, I'm going to stick it in there, grab that loop up and pull it through, and then I'm just going to cinch it. So whenever I pull on this tail, it's going to cinch that knot right up to there. So now I'm going to chain. So I've just done 20 here. I think that'll be enough so you can see what it's actually going to look like. So now we're going to start working into these loops. So if you turn the work, so here's the front facing portion of the work. So you can see we've got our V's going this way. And if you turn it, you'll see that there's these little bumps in the back. That's what Johnny Cash, you about gave me a heart attack. Would you stop? Stop being nosy. There's no business of yours in that closet. I am so sorry. He almost gave me a heart attack. I'm very jumpy and he just scared himself, which then in turn scared me. Okay, so now back to what we were doing. So we've got these bumps here. So we got 1 bump, 2 bumps, 3 bumps, 4 bumps. Sounded like Dr. Seuss just now. So we're going to go into the second bump in the back. So we'll see there's one hidden right here. We want to skip that one. We're going to go into the second bump. So let's go ahead and put our hook under there. And then we're going to pull up a loop. We're going to leave that loop on the hook. Now you want to make sure that your yarn is snug, but not too snug around this needle, because that's what's going to create your gauge for you. So for instance, if you have it pulled up like this, you're going to get a very loose gauge. So just make sure that it's up against that needle, but it's not tight. All right, now let's find our next bump. So here we've worked into this one. So now we can see our next bump is right here. And it helps to turn it just a skosh here. So you can see it looks like little, what are those dinosaurs that have the ridges on their back? I can't think of them right now. If you know what I'm talking about, then comment below. Is it Stegosaurus? Anyway, comment below what those dinosaurs are I'm thinking of, because it's going to drive me crazy. Anyway, so if you turn and look, you'll see these little bumps. Now we're going to go into this next one here. So sometimes it helps to take your fingernail and just hold it and then push through, because it can be a little stubborn to get in there. So now I've got 2 stitches here. So we started with this one, now we've got 2. And then I'm going to go into that next bump, use my fingernail to help me, pull through, leave the hook or leave the loop on the hook, into the next bump, pull through, and then we're going to do that all the way down. So let's keep going. I'll show you something cool whenever I get to the end here. Now this can be a little fiddly, so take your time. If you need to pause the video, go ahead and pause it. No one's rushing you. I'll be patiently waiting for you to finish up. And you really want to make sure like you're getting your gauge set up good here on this row, because this is your foundation row, so it's going to set the tone for your work. So if you need to, you know, pull out and redo it, then by all means. So if you need to undo a stitch, just simply take this, pull it off, and then pull that yarn through. And you can do that back as much as you want. So let me redo this one. It's all about working at a pace that you feel comfortable. It's not a race. You don't need to be fast. You just need to make sure that you're enjoying the process and you're doing it in a way that makes you happy. Okay, sometimes you might get to a point where your loop that you need to work into is a little bit tight. Just give it a little tug and you should get enough clearance to get underneath there. But don't tug it too much. Sir, I am so sorry. He is just being so extra today. I know, you've got a lot of opinions about people walking outside. Okay, so now we're here at our last bump. Now what we're gonna do is just turn it, because we don't wanna work into the bump here. We want to turn this a little bit and go into both legs. So we're going to go under here, and it can be a little fiddly, and then we're going to go under the bump. And then we're going to pull through. So that's going to kind of give us a little bit of stability on the end here. So let's look at what we have so far. If we turn here, this is a cool thing I wanted to show you. Take a look at how beautiful that edge is. So we have like a chained edge just from working in those back bumps. And that's why I always like to work in the back bumps. You get a beautiful finished edge on your cast one. All right, so you should have something similar to this. If you haven't caught up to me just yet, go ahead and pause the video right now and we'll resume when you get caught up. All right, so for our return pass, just like in every Tunisian crochet project, the return pass is going to be the same unless it's noted otherwise. So what I'm going to do is I've got my working yarn here. I'm going to move the yarn over the back of the hook like so. and then I'm going to pull through that first chain, and then I'm going to let it rest there. So now you can see that I've got one chain here at the end, and what that does is it lifts the work up a row. So now we're working on the next row coming back, and that's going to increase the height a little bit there, just to give our stitches room to grow. So now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to pull that yarn over the back, hook it into that little hook at the end, and then now we're going to pull through 2. So now we pulled through 2. Now we're going to yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And now here is a word of caution that's very important. When you're working this return pass, you don't want to have a lot of tension on your yarn and your stitches. If you're having to yank and pull this thing and you're straining your eye muscles trying to get this thing in here and you're about to bust a capillary in your eye, calm down. Loosen your grip like you're holding a butterfly wing. Loosen it up and then gently pull through. It should be effortless. You see how little tension I'm putting on there? Because one, I kept the gauge tight, but not too tight on this needle. So my gauge is pretty consistent down this needle. I don't have too much room and I don't have too little room. And then you can see here, I'm holding this needle like so. I'm not gripping it like this. I'm not up here. I'm back here holding it very gently. And then I'm easy about it. I throw the yarn over and then I just pull through. Sometimes I'm even doing it with 2 fingers. It's just whatever feels comfortable. You shouldn't be jerking. You shouldn't be trying to yank those stitches through. It helps to pinch here at the bottom of your work. So now I'm working this stitch here. It helps to pinch a little bit right there. When you yarn over, pull up just a bit. Put a little bit of, see how I'm creating that space there by just turning this needle just a little. Pull through. So I'm pinching, yarn over, give a little bit of movement to this needle in the opposite direction so it opens that stitch up, pull through. Very easy. The amount of tension and pressure I'm putting on this is so minimal. And then you just keep working. See how I'm moving my hand down in one motion? So I go up, move down, grab the yarn, pull through. Move up, pull the yarn through, and then we get all the way to the end. Boom, here we are. And this is what we should have so far. So looking at these stitches, let's look at the anatomy of these stitches real quick so we can understand what's going on. Let me get my little needle here. So if we turn it very slightly to where we can look at it kind of at an angle, we'll see that we have a stitch here that goes around this loop. So you see we have our stitch. And then if we pull just a little, now don't undo your work, you'll see we have the same kind of stitch here that goes around these loops that we've created in here underneath the loops. So we have loops here and then we have loops going through the loops. It's like the inception of loops. So our goal with the Tunisian knit stitch is that we want to work directly in between the legs of those stitches. So we're not going to work in this stitch, but I'm going to use this stitch as an example because it's in front and we can see everything about its anatomy. So when we work this Tunisian stitch, or this Tunisian knit stitch, we're going to be going between both of these legs and out the back. So see how I'm going in between them like this? So we're going to skip this first stitch, we're going to look at this next stitch and we're going to go, here's the front leg. The back leg is right back here. We're going to go between that and through. And we're going to make sure we're not going in this space in between, because that's going to give us an entirely different stitch. We want to go in between these two legs and out the back. So let's see what that looks like. So as stated, I'm going to skip this first one because we've already got a stitch coming out of it. So now I'm going to go into the second one. I'm going to go here. Now I know that I'm in between this leg. I know I'm in between that stitch, and I'm going to go right out the back. Pull up, pull my yarn through. Now let's see how that yarn's coming through. So now do you see how the stitch is separated? So now we've got our yarn coming through that stitch. So once again, make sure your tension's good. The yarn around the needles, not too tight, not too loose. We're going to go into that next stitch. We're going to go through into the back. Pull up a loop. Once again, we're making sure that we've got that loop firmly in that knit stitch that we've already created. Make sure our tension's good on the yarn or on the needle here. And we're just going to keep going. If you get lost and you get confused about what you need to do, a quick little easy way to find your next positioning. First, look where your yarn is coming from. It's coming from here. We know that this space right here, where you can see my finger through, is the space between stitches. You can always stick your hook under and then go directly back. So I'm taking my hook under that first leg, and then I'm finding that space between the stitches and just going in between it, like right out the back of it. And then I'm pulling through. All right, let's keep going. I think I gave you enough explanation. Kind of feel like I'm being stuck there for a second. All right, I just really want to make sure that you understand how that stitch is constructed, because that's going to be the defining point of whether you understand how to do this one or not, do this stitch pattern. So I'm working through. Now I'm roughly in the middle of my work, and this is where things tend to get a little wonky with most people, because we get in the middle of the work and we've got our work scrunched up like this, and everything's starting to get stressful because it's like, oh my gosh, it's getting too tight. If it's getting too tight, stop, spread your stitches out, relax your hand, and then start again. Because a lot of new Tunisian knitters, Tunisian crocheters, tend to have a lot of bunching and a lot of tightness in the middle of their work because of this simple fact. I experienced the same thing when I was starting. So I found the way to combat that is just to stop, spread your stitches, loosen your hand up a little bit, and then go ahead and keep working. Now, for me personally, I like having my finger on this stitch here to make sure that it doesn't go anywhere. So I have my hands rested like this, holding this stitch. And then that gives me a little bit more control. You might be different, but that's just how I like to do it. But you can have a tendency to make things a little too tight if you're too pinchy up here. So just keep that in mind. We're going to keep going down. Uh-oh. Whoopsie doodle. Okay, there's something going on here. All right. There we go. All right, so we've done our last stitch here next to the end. So the last stitch will always be worked differently because we need to provide a little bit more stability to that last stitch. So when we're working this last stitch, we're going to turn the work facing us, and we're going to see those two legs. What we want to do is go underneath both of those legs and then pull up a stitch. And now we're at the end of our work again. Beautiful. Now let's take a look at what we got so far, because it's kind of weird, right? So now we've got like what seems to be a flat piece here at the bottom. What the heck is going on, right? And that's where the denseness of this stitch comes into play. Like I said, the stitch is going to be very dense and it's going to have a tendency to curl. And this is why. So we're working through both of those stitches, which is going to pull that work up to the bottom of your needle. So let's go ahead and do our return pass and we'll be able to see a little bit more clearly about what's going on here. So I'm going to do my return pass. I'm going to yarn over, pull through 1. That's going to be essentially my chain 1 and raising up the work to the next level. We're going to yarn over and we're going to pull through 2 all the way to the end. So yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. This is personally my favorite part of doing Tunisian. It's just so relaxing. But there is a tendency to be like, oh my gosh, I just yarned over and pulled through 3. Oh my goodness. So if you get here and you yarn over and you're like, oh crap, I just pulled through 3, just slowly back out. And this is where going slowly into your work really is going to help you in the beginning. You don't have to rush through it. So just slowly pulling through. And the great thing about this is when you go slow and you really get that muscle movement down, you'll get faster naturally. Your brain will remember what exactly you need to do, and your muscles will be like, oh, this is easy. I remember this movement. And you'll naturally become quicker. So always go slow at the first start of anything. Okay, let's see what we got so far. Ooh, we can kind of see our knit stitches coming together, can't you? It's not too clear yet, but you can see. So you see how when we worked that, now it brought that stitch forward. That's exactly what we want. So we're going to repeat that last row and the return pass over and over and over again until we get the length of the fabric we want. So let's do that again. So I'm going to skip this first stitch, and then I'm going to, and it's going to be a lot easier to see on this pass, I'm going to work into this stitch here. So I'm going to go into that front leg, and then I'm going to go straight out the back. So you see how now this is a little bit easier to see. Here's how the orientation, the orientation of that needle is working. So I'm going to go into here and just go straight out the back. That was a little bit easier to see, wasn't it? Okay, so into that stitch, out the back, pull up. Into that stitch, out the back, pull up. There we go. Just make sure you're going into the stitch and not between the stitches. That's going to be your biggest challenge here, because it's going to be super easy once you get going to be like bloop, and then all of a sudden you're in between the stitches. So you want to make sure you go under that leg and out the back. Let's not make a tight mess here in the middle. I still need to catch myself doing that sometimes because I get so caught up. All right, still working. And here we are at the end. So now we're going to turn our work. We see our little V here. We're going to go under both legs of that V, like so, like that. See how we have both legs under there? Pull up a loop. And we've just completed another row of the knit stitches. So I'm going to quickly here do a return pass so we can kind of see what we're working with now. So you see how I was struggling there a little bit to get that stitch through, and I actually just loosened my tension up and all of a sudden it went through. It's such a counterintuitive experience because like your brain's wanting to say, "Arr, get it through and force it, force it." But doing the exact opposite helps you get it through. All right, let's see what we have. Ooh, look at there. beautiful. So you can really start to see the fabric come together now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go off camera and work up a lot more of these rows and then show you what the fabric will look like once you get to working it a bit. Okay, so I want to show you just how much this pattern, the stitch pattern, likes to curl, because it definitely likes to curl. It is a very dense fabric, so it wants to pull in on itself. That is it in its natural state. Frustrating, right? And that's just the nature of this type of Tunisian stitch pattern. It's going to curl. So this is what it looks like when you have some fabric worked up. Looks just like knit. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to tell the difference unless you were a professional knitter or someone who knits all the time. And then if you look at the back of the fabric, it kind of does have a purl bump to it. Look how dense this thing is. This is a thick fabric. It is going to be very thick. So this would be great if you have cats who like to sleep on certain parts of your couch or surfaces that you don't want claws messing up. It's very cushy, it's very dense, so it's going to give a nice little padding. So I've actually made cat mats before using this stitch pattern. But I would be tempted to go up like maybe 2 more needle sizes to see exactly how far I can take this while maintaining the stitch definition and then losing some of that curl. So if you want to try, maybe go up to a 7 or an 8 and see what that looks like if it curls less. But yeah, this is perfect for those types of projects where you need a very, very dense fabric that looks like knit. And with blocking and, you know, get it wet, lay it down, pin it flat, it could help with some of that curling. And then also adding a border to the bottom as well is going to help with some of that curling. But other than that, I don't really know what to tell you. This is just one of those stitch patterns that curl, and they're going to want to curl. You can use that to your advantage, or you can try to fight against it by going up a ridiculous number of gauge sizes in your needle. So try an 8mm if you don't want that much curl, and see what that produces. All right, I hope this video helped you understand the Tunisian knit stitch. I hope it helped you work your pattern if you're working a pattern, or maybe it gave you some inspiration to create a pattern. If it did, go ahead and link me, comment me at Mountaintop Yarn in Instagram and Facebook. I'd love to see what you make. I'm on both of those. Look at my nail polish chipping off. Boy, I'm never using this company's polish again. Just done with it. All right, until next time, bye.